Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Zain. Tonight, we have another guest within the community, an opinionated guest, which is always a positive. Needs no introduction, has an interesting name. He just calls himself the Cranky fan. So let's see how cranky it does or does not get tonight. I'm hoping for some crankiness just because the name has kind of set the bar here. So let's see what kind of energy we get right here. But let's go ahead and bring him in.
Well, let's see how this final inning goes with the Rays before if you want a level of crankiness. They're up 1-0 in the bottom of the eighth. So if you want me to get
Okay.
really, really cranky, let's see them blow the lead in the ninth. But
So all I've learned so far immediately is Crank is a fan of the Rays, and we're
mhm.
hoping that they lose strictly to bring out a side of him that we potentially want to see. Most people probably don't, but I want to see
Oh,
this.
they do. I mean, it's funny because of all the sports. I'm obviously a Giants fan. I'm a Nick fan, uh, Lightning fan, Rays fan. But the one thing that just really sets me off as the game goes on is baseball. Like Giants, you just kind of you watch and react. I'm not really on Twitter during games that
Sure.
much, for a Giant game. But for the Rays, you're just kind of sitting there because baseball is a slower pace, and I'm usually on my
Yes.
couch watching, and I get so aggravated with this, with baseball. You know how it is.
Sure.
Baseball is a game where if you fail hitting 7 out of 10 times, you're still a successful hitter. So
You're a Hall of Famer, one would say, if you're hitting.
yeah,
So you're hitting
exactly.
this-
So that's where you see, like, that's where I'm known for most on Twitter is just when I get on these rants when we blow a lead or our idiot manager does something stupid or anything. That's when I get all fired up. So,
Shout out to Darius.
hey,
Darius
Darius,
man, is one of the greatest supporters in the community. He goes to everything for everybody. Love Darius. Mark is in the house. Shout out to Mark coming through.
what's going on, Mark?
And as they pitch any questions, thoughts, we'll put them up. So
Yeah,
far,
bring him up.
what we've learned about the Crank so far is he's a Rays fan. So I was kind of getting a little bit of background info on him because I was curious when he was watching the Rays and Twins. He was like, "Well, I'm a Rays fan." I was like, "Well, how did that happen?" So why don't you give us a little bit of journey about your life a little bit, right? Where
Yeah,
did you grow up? How'd you end up here? How a Giants fan? How a Rays fan? How did that whole roller
sure.
coaster go for you?
Well, I am old. First of all, I am 50. Unbelievable. I can't. I'm still having a major problem dealing with that. But I grew up on Long Island. We moved to Florida when I was in high school. So, went to high school down in the Tampa Bay area, played baseball down there, went to school at University of Florida. So that's where my Gator allegiance and everything comes from is I
So
clutter.
quick
Sure.
sidebar. You brought that up. Anthony Richardson, do you have a U of F type? Are you now I have to because or no opinion whatsoever?
I mean, well, I'll obviously be following him, but
Does he
he
get the
is.
alumni? Does he get the extra support because of the alumni factor here,
Oh, of
or not even?
course.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, he's in the AFC South, so he's or the what is
No,
he,
you're right.
North?
The Colts took him, right?
Yeah, so that's not
With
going
his
to be
help.
that's not an issue with the Giants. It's not like it broke
Sure.
my heart when Emmett Smith got drafted by the Cowboys. That was like,
Mm.
ugh, awful.
Shout out to Emmitt Smith. He'll never see this, but he's my frat brother. So shout out to Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, shout out, man.
And he went to University of Florida.
He went to University.
He's
He
from
went to
U of
University
F.
of Florida. Right. He left to go to the NFL the year before I started at UF. So that's how old I am. So went to UF. I lived in Florida for a few years after when the Rays and the Lightning started. So that's how I became fans of those two, and then moved up here, back up to New York in 1999. So I've been in Manhattan ever since, and I've been a Giant fan and a Nick fan since as long as I remember.
Well, I grew up a Nets fan, so I've always been anti-Knicks. So I always revel in their failures and misery. It's a good time for me. I mean, I know the Nets have now left and moved on to Brooklyn, so I hate them too now. So I don't have a basketball team. I just hate both of them. One left for Brooklyn, and the other one I grew up not liking. So I can't just wake up one day and be like, "Oh, I'll be a Knicks fan." That's not a thing. Like that's not how sports.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want those people. I mean, if you're a net, I
Nah, we
actually respect you more if you're a net fan. If you're a net fan from Jersey, I give you a lot of respect. It's the bandwagoners all of a sudden they got their brand new KD and
Oh,
Kyrie
the
jerseys.
the the moment they went to Brooklyn, I flipped them every finger I could find. I was like, "Look, if you're gonna leave me, I'm not supporting you. I support the I'm a homer, right? So that's why
That's fair.
it's why I'm such a big Devils fan. I understand for Rangers fans who have been passed down through family
Mhm.
because the Devils obviously came at a later time. But when I grew up, we had a team, so good or bad, I'm rocking with the home team.
Hey, a lot of respect for that. I mean, that's the whole point of being a fan. I mean, even
Yeah.
us as Giant fans, this last decade has been rough. since the Super Bowls. But
Well, rough is such a generous way to describe that decade. It's been atrocious, I would say.
there's no jump to become a Jet fan, or who the hip cool team of the week or the month is. You're a fan because you're a fan, and you
So,
appreciate the good times when it's good, and you know it builds
little
character when they suck.
little fact growing up, I had no idea the Jets existed. I didn't
I
even know there
still
was
don't.
another football team. I didn't know there was another football team. I only knew about the Giants. It was later on that I learned that, oh wait, this is another team here.
All I know is they pay half of our mortgage, so that as long as those rent checks keep coming in, God bless you, Jets.
They're also the reason we don't have a roof because they didn't want to pay for it. That's also a reason we know them, but that's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, we could put that on us also, and then I don't know how. What is your take on MetLife? Because I hate it.
So
Oh, that's gone.
I tweeted about this today. I literally tweeted about this today because somebody released the photos of the Jaguars' new stadium, what they're working
Yeah,
on, right? Looks
right.
beautiful. And my
Mhm.
first instinct was, for the love of God, MetLife is a POS, and it is. And
Sucks.
I'm not
Yeah.
taking backlash for this, and I don't understand why. It's going on year 16 or 17, right? It got built in 2010, but they started in '07. It is outdated. It is so
Well,
outdated.
it's not that it's outdated. It's just, first of all, there's two important things of a stadium. It's
Sure.
functionality and character.
Yes.
And there is, first of all, zero character. I mean, I get it. You're trying to have two teams there, so you want to have it neutral at least, or at best, or easy enough to switch over between the blue and the green. So I get that, but I don't really care. If your team is good, it doesn't matter what the character of a stadium is. But
Sure.
the place is a piece of garbage because the concourses are too narrow, the bathrooms are too crowded. Uh, even just to try to get food at halftime is just a disaster. And these are the same problems we had in the old Giant Stadium.
Yeah.
It was not built. If you go to any new stadium that's been built in the last 20 years, anywhere, whether it's Philly or Foxborough or down in Tampa or any of the new ones,
Yeah, even look at SoFi.
wide
Even
concourses.
SoFi, like any of them.
Yeah, and then not having a roof is beyond ridiculous. I mean, a the weather here stinks in the winter, and b this is New York. I mean, New York should have Final Fours. They should have national championship games for football. They should have Super Bowls, and those things are never going to happen here because they didn't put a roof on. They
Sure.
they tried to be cheap.
Shout out to Chris
What's up, Chris, buddy?
in the building.
One
So
of our L16 crew. Yeah,
great valid point here. Get a retractable, use it to your advantage weather-wise when you want for games, but otherwise host other events. Like, you want these other events to be here. You want other
yeah.
people to come. You don't want to sell out the stadium of 85,000 people for like a high-end comic who wants to come in but wants to
Well,
come during winter, right? I mean, make that
well,
money.
just look. I mean, we go to games in early December, especially if you stink. I mean, the last thing you want
Yeah.
to do is sit out in 35 degrees and freezing rain.
Yeah.
I kind of gotten spoiled by going to, the Atlantas of the world or Houston, where it's like 72 and clear.
Yeah. The weather's just
It
not in
looks
our
great
favor.
looks good on TV to see rain, and I don't want to hear, well, there's a snow game. I've been going to Giant games for 25 years. I
Yeah.
think I've been in one snow game, and it was like heavy flurries. So the dream of sitting in a blizzard, it just doesn't happen. 38 and rain happens all the time. And that's no
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Cold wind. I mean, even when they designed the stadium, again, if anyone's been,
Yeah.
it's open all around. It's open to let the wind in and out, which is supposed to be a plus advantage. But again, you
Yeah.
can still do that with the ability to have enclosures. You can still do
Yeah.
that with enclosures. Open it for the game days for your advantage. Like I said, it's only for 8 games, potentially 9, depending on the 17-game schedule, whether you get there.
Well, hopefully it's 11 if you're hosting the NFC Championship game. I mean,
Hopefully, if it goes all the way through, I'm with you.
let's dream big.
All right. So Chris just throws out, is there an update on the turf? The last I saw of it was the replacement was taking place. The replacement did
Yes.
take place. I haven't had any follow up whether they've been active because they
I
were doing both the stadium and I believe the practice facility.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those things where you're looking for a reason for things why they happen,
Sure.
and they're going to blame the turf. And to me, I think the Giants over the last decade have been a victim of bad luck with injuries. I don't think it's an issue of the turf. I mean, the turf it's always tested. The Players Association would never allow their players to play. I mean, remember, they've canceled preseason games, in Canton and other they've canceled games in Mexico if the turf or the grass is not up
Up
to
to par.
standard.
Sure.
So I just think the Giants have had unfortunate luck with injuries, and a lot of it, people look for a reason, a scapegoat, and they're going to
Sure.
say, well, it's the turf. It's not the turf. It's just bad luck.
I believe the turf is a contributing factor. I don't believe it's end all be all. So I think there's points to it. So I'll bring up one point that I brought up a few times. I'll reiterate it. I think it was when Macadon was head coach. They were reviewing, or Macadoodoo, whatever you want to call them, when they were reviewing some of the issues because they were having injury issues beforehand too. Before
Mhm.
he took over, he brought in the guy from Notre Dame. I think his name was Aaron Heilman or Wellman, something like, or Wellman, something like that.
Wellman, Aaron
Yeah,
Wellman.
they brought in the strength and conditioning coach, and for the time he was here, they were great. He left, and all of a sudden the injuries came back. So
That that's
I don't
that's
know if it
random.
was correlated.
That's
You think so? You think that's
yes.
really random that a
I
whole
mean,
strength and
we're
conditioning
not
coach
talking
comes in?
about strength and conditioning coaches at a junior high in Mississippi. I mean, these are
Cool.
NFL quality strength and conditioning guys. These guys all have masters in physical therapy and sports nutrition and all these things. That's all. I mean, injuries unfortunately are random,
But are they
and
keeping up with the times? Sure, they have
of
it, but are
course
they
they are.
keeping up with the times? Everybody, I don't think everybody's keeping up with the
Of
times.
course, I mean,
You think so?
you,
You think
yeah.
every team's hierarchy is not? There's no old or changing of the guard. It's just everyone's up to speed all the time, up
There's
to par.
there's 32 teams in the league. There's a scarcity of jobs. You are going to have the best of the best, and it's been a quantum leap in the last 15 years for sports nutrition and exercise and workout. And I think there's a if anything, I just think the fact that these guys are working out, you know,
Too much?
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, where I think people's bodies get run down. I think it happens in baseball, and I think it happens in football. And
Sure.
you know, Tommy John surgeries is so much more than there were. I think because these guys, you know, they're always being conditioned. They don't have breaks. So
Sure.
I think a lot of that's random. I don't think anybody has outdated workout facilities or workout regimens or philosophies. So
Appreciate you for being the health coach. I'm gonna throw you a counter because you just said all these teams are gonna bring you the best of the best. But I'll counter with nepotism, a la Chris Mara, right? Nepotism. Are you really getting the best of the best when you're involving those aspects? Because these teams and owners want to bring in their guys as much.
well,
They also always aren't the best decision makers. By the way, thank you,
there
Jerry
there there
Jones.
there
Thank you,
is
Jerry
certain.
Jones. You're part of the reason that we're having a good time. You're part of the reason.
I mean that's true. I mean, but also exceptions don't prove rules
Sure,
too.
I
So
agree. Totally agree.
you have nepotism like with the Cowboys and to some respects the Giants, and I'm sure there's Rooney's floating around somewhere all over the Steelers, and I'm sure there's some Hallises and McCaskies around, floating around the Bears organization. But for the majority now, competitive edges are more important than making sure the idiot cousin gets a job. So
That's the hope, but I don't know if you can say that for all teams because some teams are just happy as long as they're pocket changing. So as long as
yeah,
they're getting their money, they might be okay being mid tier, lower tier, and that might be actually more true for baseball than football. I think that's way more prevalent in the baseball world than
I
it
also
is in
don't.
the football
I
world.
also don't feel like the Giants are one of those teams that are just trying to make the buck.
Yeah, I'm not including them in that. I'm just saying
Yeah,
generally
yeah, yeah,
across the
yeah.
board
I mean,
between the
I
two
could see
teams.
some teams like your Cincinnati's of the world that were like that, but I don't see the Giants as one of those teams that they're in it just to make a dollar. I
No, they're
think.
definitely in it to win it. They believe in their tradition. They believe in their history. They've just made some bad choices. They've made not
Mhm,
some. They made a fair amount of bad choices that haven't worked out in their favor.
mhm.
But speaking of choices, one of their choices was Joe Shane. What are your thoughts now in year two? How did you feel initially when Joe Shane was hired? Were you for it, against it? Did you have a different guy? How are you feeling now?
Well, my take coming into that search was the Giants were a 20th century team trying to compete in the 21st century, and all phases of the organization were clearly behind. We were running an old offense. We were, an old program of scouting and building a roster. Um, I think I think we lost time trying to get Eli Manning one more title when he was clearly on the descent of his career. So this team really needed a complete overhaul and a start over. And to your point, like the Maras are very loyal. They are loyal to their guys, and Dave Gettleman was one of their guys. And we needed to really hit rock bottom in a glaringly embarrassing way for to get change to happen. I think that happened at the end of 2020 season, or 2021 season. So, you know, I always look at where you hire somebody, where did they come from, and who else was trying to get them. Whether it's recruiting in college football, it's like if I'm trying to get a wide receiver, well, if I'm Florida, who else is recruiting this guy? Is Bama and Georgia trying to get him, or is Southwest Louisiana trying to get him? And the same thing with getting Joe Shane and getting getting Kafka and getting all these guys. It's look at the pedigree of where they're from.
Sure.
They're on good teams, Kansas Cities and Buffaloes. These are good teams, and so we're getting guys with good stock and good backgrounds. So I was, I was all for it, and it's early, but so far so good. My philosophy with the Giants right now is I'm trying to toe the line between excitement because of what we did last year and knowing that we are still in the middle
Building
of a
stage.
rebuild.
Sure.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that
Absolutely.
you can't rush a process. And
I
you
feel
know,
like I haven't been able to be excited about Giants football in a long time, even with the successes, because I don't want my emotional letdown to take place. I don't want to get excited and then constantly be let down. And I feel like
well,
there's potential for a little bit letdown coming up. Um,
I think there's a difference between being excited and having irrational expectation. Where I think every Giant fan has 100% the right to be excited about this year. This
sure.
team, has the potential to be exciting. They brought in a lot of speed. There's a lot of youth on this team. I think now that you're in year two of this coaching staff and year two of Daniel Jones with this coaching staff, I think you'll see the offense open up to more of what they want to do as opposed to limited to what they had.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so I think there's definitely optimism to be excited about this team. I think what's going to happen, I think a lot of Giant fans have to be very, very careful, and I have to keep myself in check too, is this is not a Super Bowl team yet. And the expectation is, well, we made it to the second round of the playoffs. Next year, the expectation is to take the next leap to the conference finals. We're not there yet still. This team still has depth issues, and this team still has, holes in various spots where they need another draft or two. They need some free agent signings. So, and it was obvious watching that Philly playoff game last year that we beat Minnesota, but we are clearly not in Philly's you know category right now.
Sure.
So I think it's kind of I'm excited about the year coming up, but I'm also not booking my flights to Vegas for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I'm not Super Bowl or bust. I think that's wildly egregious to just
Yeah,
get there. If it happens, no one's complaining about it, but the
and,
expectation shouldn't be that.
and you're about 3 minutes away from me getting really angry because you're about to blow a lead here in the ninth. So just giving you an
Excellent. It's
update.
about to get really good in 3 minutes, is what I
Yeah,
heard. All right,
you'll see
so
it on my face.
excellent. There it is.
They
So
just blew the lead
for anyone joining, Crank's watching his beloved Tampa Bay Rays hopefully blow a game, and then he'll bring the anger to the show. So that'll be fun. So in between,
because his bullpen sucks, and I've been saying it all along.
while you're about to lose it, let's talk a little bit about the draft. All right,
Sure.
your initial thoughts about it, and then Chris brought up or asked who was your favorite. So go through your initial thought process of the draft. How did you feel about the draft between all the picks, and then who was your favorite of that?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I am not as much of a draftnik as Grump is.
Sure.
He is the one. He is. If you watch Just Giants and listen to our show, he does a fantastic job breaking down film. Analyzing draft picks, analyzing prospects and everything. I am more of a tell me who I got. I'll tell you what we need. Tell
Sure.
me who we got. Tell me, I'll tell you if I think it's going to be, something that's going to help us out or not.
Sure.
So, having said that, again, we're doing this show in early June. On paper, we filled a lot of needs that this team had. We needed a center. We needed a cornerback. We needed a wide receiver. We needed depth, on the defensive line. And we've addressed a lot of those things.
Sure.
So to me, on paper, this has been a pretty successful draft so far. And remember, we're not done. People think, there's still, you know, you're going to get guys on cut down day in training camp where you're going to get, people are going to be cut for various reasons for, cap issues, people being beat out and everything. So this roster is not done yet. But for a specific guy, I would say John Michael Smith is definitely the one I want. I want him in the first round. And the fact he fell to the second round to me is it's something I've been banging the drum for years that this offensive line has to be addressed as a key priority. And
Yeah,
getting a
and
center
the last time
means
we had a full time center was Weston Richburg, who again just couldn't
yeah.
stay healthy. He was actually good. He just couldn't stay healthy, and that was really the only issue. So Phil's a big one. And
eh,
Becca brings up that she's not necessarily familiar with you. And do you have a pod or a YouTube? Are you just on Twitter? And make sure she follows you. Becca's one of the best supporters in the community
Oh,
with everybody.
hey
She's
there.
awesome. Becca Crank is
I
definitely on Twitter.
Yes, I am on Twitter at the Cranky Fan. And now his base is loaded. I'm about to get really furious. But our big thing is we do a Giants podcast, the Just Giants podcast with myself and the Football Grump. In the off season, we publish every Tuesday morning. We're on everywhere, YouTube and all the audio platforms. During the season, we do a show on Tuesday mornings for a recap of the previous weekend, and we do on Friday mornings is a preview of the upcoming game. So I would say look for us on YouTube. Subscribe if you could, and we're on SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, everywhere where there are.
Yep, and you already picked
You
up
get our
Coach.
show.
Coach has got you. Coach has got the support to you on the podcast. Chris is shouting
Thanks,
out
my man.
Just Giants as well. And one half of the team is obviously, as Crank has mentioned, would be Football Grump. Can also be found on Twitter. So they do some
Yeah,
good
and
stuff.
he also has his own separate channel where he does little small clips of, again, very heavy during the draft season. Like he'll be like, here are 5 wide receivers that are under the radar, and he'll do film breakdowns of those. So that's our companion show, but our main one is the Just Giants podcast.
And there you go. Becca's already on it. While you've been talking, she's already done it. So boom, following you.
Thanks,
Got
Becca.
coaching. Getting to go. Becca again, a great support. A lot of people are great support. IO's in the building. Independent outsider, bringing this up. Very important. Hope everybody is safe. It is crazy out there right now. If people are paying
It
attention to the air quality, I mean, I'm in South Jersey and it's yellow enough. I saw pictures in New
it's
York. It looks wild right
at,
now.
at about 2 o'clock today. The sky was orange. It looked like if
Yeah.
you ever seen Empire Strikes Back going
Hey,
into Cloud City. It looked like that. It was
we're
a
already we got emails from our schools that for the kids at least that there's going to be no outdoor recess. They're blocking all that. You got to be indoors at this point. So let's hope it clears up and people are staying safe. So
yeah.
so here's the deal now. So you feel good about the draft,
Mhm.
right? We had a winning season. What is your expectation now? I know you said, hey, Super Bowl's crazy, but what's your personal expectation? What happens next season that makes the crank go, I'm happy, or what does happen, or what doesn't happen that makes you go, all right, now I'm upset?
What would make me happy this season? I think this season's more about building on what we did last year. I'm still, again, I think I want to say this in a nice way. Like, I think our record might have been a little bit a reflection of being lucky with the schedule a little bit and just catching some breaks. I don't think we were an 11-win team or a 10-win team last year. I think, we had a lot of issues that were kind of massive. We got, winning some early games early on and beating teams we should have early on. Um, it definitely was something that this coaching staff needed in this front office. You take the pressure off by winning. And that way, I think that builds enthusiasm. I think with something that people don't talk about, it builds confidence in the locker room that you get more buy-in from your players. If you have a new coaching staff and you start off 3-7 or 2-8, that season's over, and people start checking out early, and it's like, okay, do we know that this guy, is he good enough? I think
Sure.
starting off early, I think enabled buy-in to happen. These seem like players, coaches, and I don't mean buddy buddy, but guys that they want to rally around. So to me, the biggest things this year are continuing to install what was put in last year, seeing continued growth. This year, I want to see a little more of an identity of what this team is going to be. I think this team last year, they didn't know what they really had in Daniel Jones. Had an offensive line that was still figuring a lot of things out. Um, you know, I think they have a lot of questions have been answered in the offseason and over last year. So I want to say at the end of this season, I know that the what this walk off win.
That's
Raise one.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Um,
Randy Arozarena, walk off win.
unfortunate
Okay.
for the pod, but
No,
good for
no
you.
crankiness for tonight. Sorry, guys. So,
Terrible.
and you'll also realize that I multitask all the time. That my
Sure.
brain is working in 5 directions at once. The difference between me and Grump is football. Grump is Giants 100% of the time, 365 days a year, and I'm trying to get 7 of my favorite teams in my brain at the same time always. So,
That's fair.
yeah. So that was good.
Well, quick. I mean, I was
Sure.
going to ask this question anyway, but Becca's
Sure.
reading my mind here, and we have to ask it. 2019 to today. Walk me through your journey on the Daniel Jones train. 2019 to today. How did it start? Where are we now? What is the opinion?
My opinion is really been the same as it's been all along. Is that you know I think he can be a very capable quarterback in this league. I think he's got intangibles. I think he's a smart quarterback. I think he's a guy that has been fighting the narrative battle since day one when he got drafted. I think a lot of people were surprised and disappointed that he was drafted so high. I think, on day one, the media gave him grief, unfairly because, everybody who's on a couch and does a draft board or does a mock draft think they're as smart as general managers in the NFL, and that is not the case. And I think a lot of people have a self defense mechanism that they can't be wrong, they must be wrong.
Sure.
So he's been fighting a narrative from the day he got here that he was drafted too high, drafted by a general manager that nobody liked, and
That part is still true. Nobody likes Dave Gettleman. That part
I
is
mean,
still
nobody
true.
liked Dave Gettleman, and I was actually willing to give Dave Gettleman a chance, and it didn't work out with him, but so be it. Um, I think the guy is very intelligent. I like the fact that he's very even keeled. I mean, there's a lot of Eli in him where,
Sure.
I don't need a fiery rah-rah quarterback. I need a guy who's always going to keep his wits and keep his head, whether he's throwing for 400 yards and 6 touchdowns or is throwing 5 picks. Um, you know, Football is as much mental as it is physical. And if you are too fiery or you lose your composure, you can be taken out of a game. And he does not do that. There's a lot of Eli in that. I like what he does with his legs. I think he's got a nice arm. I just think he's been the product of not having weapons and protection around him to be successful. I think I think when when Joe Shane got here, he did the absolute right thing in declining his 5th-year option because, quite frankly, we didn't know what he is. They didn't know what they had. They didn't know if he was going to fit in their system. They didn't know, what their supporting cast was going to be around him. And something, you can go back and listen to our show, listen to any Giant show 12 months ago, and everybody was saying the exact same thing. A lot of people wanted him gone. They didn't want him back for his 5th year. So the fact that you know, he outkicked his coverage the way he played and showed potential to be, you know, he'll never be an Aaron Rodgers. He'll never be, one of the greats of the game. But he can be a guy. He could be a Phil Simms type who, you know, makes the smart decisions. He's cut down a lot on his turnovers, and I think he could be a successful quarterback. And I think he's a successful quarterback in this league. You don't win. You don't go to the second round of the playoffs with absolute, smoke and mirrors at your quarterback position.
Sure. Absolutely.
And
And
and then if
thank God he's not Aaron
and
Rodgers.
then if you look
Aaron Rodgers
around
is a douche.
and look at his talent around him, I mean, you know, even for the upgrades he made at wide receiver, we still do not have what I consider an elite wide receiver room. And what did we have last year? We still had guys like the David Sills of the world were still on this roster that have no business being on an NFL roster. So
Be careful when you talk about David Sills. David Sills' army's out there. They'll come get you.
that's fine. I'm at the Cranky fan. You guys can come at me if you want. But the fact you may like the guy, may be a great guy, but the fact is he's not an NFL receiver.
Sure.
And he had to, an offensive line that any given week, you're not even sure who your left guard, your center. We had a high. Evan Neal was struggling as we expected him to in his rookie year, and all
Yeah.
these things kind of build up. And what did he do? He outkicked his coverage, and I think that now that the questions and the thought about where you're going to be next year have been settled. He has a contract. This is his team, undoubtedly his team. I think he'll be fine.
All right, so we're all in, is what I'm hearing, which is what I like to
Yeah.
hear. If you're all in with your team, you're all in with the players.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to be because
Sure.
he's not going anywhere. I mean,
Well, at
he.
least for 2 years, he's not.
Mhm.
At least for 2 years, he's here. So,
Yeah. I mean,
um,
there's two guys on this roster that, you would told me a year ago would still be on this roster right now, him and Darius Slayton, where, you know, my thought going at this time last year was this front office, this coaching staff did not want those two, and they earned the respect of, the GM, the head coach, the wide receiver coach, the quarterback, all these different things that they're here. So that tells you that this coaching staff has a vision and a plan of what they want to do, but they also are allowing to what they see impact their decision making, not just preconceived notions of what they thought or were told. So
yeah,
that's good.
most people, including myself, thought Darius Slayton was gone. Daniel Jones, I was kind of the same place. I was like, let's see what he does this year, and if he comes back or not, and that'll be up to them. So it's more like a let's see, we'll see type
Mhm.
scenario. But most people had Darius Slayton gone, so kudos to him for getting that next contract, and the regime saying, nope, we want this, we
I
want what you bring to the table back.
I am not a Darius Slayton guy. I just don't trust guys that in the biggest moments don't produce.
Sure.
So I really don't need to hear what his numbers were, how many yards he had, how many catches he had, blah blah blah. The fact is, in the big spots, his hands are suspect. He
Yes.
dropped a pass in that Minnesota game that could
Yep.
have iced that game right there and then didn't.
Sure.
And so he has a history of it. I think he's never going to be anything more than a wide receiver three. And, now fortunately that we're getting better weapons that he can be in that role where he should be. So we'll see.
What's been your favorite move of the offseason? And it could be either side. There's obviously been free agents, there's been draft, there's been, you name it. Is there one particular move, or what is the one particular move that sticks out to you, says, you know what, that's the move that does it for me?
This may be an unpopular take, but I think standing firm with Saquon Barkley and not giving into what he wanted for his $12 million. We offered him a very, very fair contract extension, which he rejected. And I think he's probably, when he goes to sleep at night, thinking, I should have taken that deal because the market dried up for running backs. And I think, I personally, I am not a guy who thinks you should invest all that much in a running back,
Sure.
you know, and, this is going to be his sixth year,
60, yep.
sixth year in the league. He's had injury issues. He's getting some thread on the tires. I I am not a guy who's like, you got to pay him what he wants to keep him. Maybe because I'm getting older now, I don't worship players. I don't have idols. You know, I don't need a face of the franchise. I want to win, and I want to put my team in the best position to win. And I think giving him 12, 13, 14 million dollars over the next 4 or 5 years does not put this franchise in the best position to be successful. And
Sure.
I think running back has proven to be a position that you can replace for cheaper and get, maybe you get 80% of the skill set or 75%. I don't think you're crippling your offense. This league is becoming a passing league. This is a league where you need chunk yardage, big plays. And I you know, if he
I
was
agree with you in concept. I agree with you
Mhm,
in theory, and I'd probably agree with 90% of the names you threw out there. But do
right.
you believe Saquon's as easily as replaceable as you know, so and so? I don't. Does he
Depends
fall
on
into
the
the same
depends on the
tier?
position.
What do you mean position?
Like you mean is he
I'm talking about
replaceable
the
as a running
specific
back as
player. Yeah, I'm
other
talking about the specific player. Is Saquon as easily as replaceable as all these other running backs? We all know that, you know what,
Sure.
you can't go crazy in running backs, but does Saquon fall into that same conversation for you that, you know what, he's replaceable too?
Yes.
Let's keep moving. Really?
Yes. Well,
How
first of
so?
all, this is not an offense like uh, Tennessee is, where it's built around Derrick Henry. It's based around his unique skill set. This is not an offense that's built around like Le'Veon Bell was built around. This offense is built around the passing game and around, you know, decision making by Daniel Jones and hitting guys in space and getting fast guys out in space. So, again, Saquon Barkley is not the best running back in the league. I don't think he's one of the top 3 or 4 best running backs in the league. His availability worries me. Um, So I think that unless you are an all time great, you're a Barry Sanders, you're an Emmett Smith. I think for what their market asking prices for is replaceable. Now, I'm not saying replaceable with a guy who's a 6 round draft pick, but I mean relative to the value and what their cost, I'd rather use the resources on getting a wide receiver one than
So let's take a step back here. Where
yeah.
is Saquon to you in your ranking of running backs? You said he's not 3, he's not 4. Where is he for you? And I don't need the exact sorry. I don't need the exact number. You could say he's 8 for me. He's top 5. I just don't know the number. But
I would
where is
say
he
he's
for you?
I would say he's like in the second tier of running backs in the league.
Second tier, Crank. Are
I
we
mean, like
smoking something down there when Tampa Bay wins? Second tier?
I
Is
mean
that
I
gonna
mean
be your
I
first tier
I, I
running
I
back?
don't think he's a first team All Pro. I mean, if you're having a draft of wide receiver of running backs, is he one of your first two?
If I'm having if we're talking about the position of running back, who are
Yes.
the running backs I'm drafting? If you ask me, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
he one of the first two?
Yes.
Who would I be taking over him? Yes, yeah, he's one of my first two.
He's one of
Yeah,
your first two. Okay.
yeah,
I mean,
in the
that's
run
that's
in the
that's
running back
matter of me.
position. Because the thing is, who else is there that gives me that
Well,
same threat? And that's who would be above him. I can't
well,
think of many I'd put above him.
well. Let me ask you a more important question: whether
Sure.
he's the best running back or not. Where do you value running back in value towards your overall offense? Did you value having an elite running back or having an elite wide receiver?
Now that one can go completely on scheme, like you're saying, right? Part of
Hmm.
you're bringing up, so scheme's definitely going to
Hmm.
be a part of it, and then
Hmm.
the other part of it is neither individual components are ever going to win you a Super Bowl. The
Hmm.
elite wide receiver isn't going to do it, and the elite running back isn't going to do it. It's going to be the combination of what you build. So
Hmm.
I would say it's either or, depending on right. Would you rather the Devonte Adams or would you rather the Saquon? And that just becomes like a subjective toss up. I would say in this scenario.
Mm.
Saquon's already ours, so it's obvious there's obviously a bias. But when it comes to at least Daniel Jones and the objective side, the ability to run the RPO and the play action, keeping the defense on their heels has a big part of Saquon when the eyes are there. Now, if I replace him and I put Eric Gray, and this is not a knock on Eric Gray. I like Eric Gray. He's RB2 already, in my opinion. But if I put him there, my eyes aren't as focused on him. I'm now focusing on, say, Darren Waller, or if I know, Jalen High is my deep threat, my
Right.
focus
Oh,
changes because
I'm
it's not Saquon.
I'm not saying at all that he's replaceable by a replacement level player. Not at all. No, no.
Sure.
And the way we drafted great with the thought that Saquon is going to be back. So drafting a running back is not a need position right now. The-
Not a need.
running back,
Yeah,
running,
because you have one, sure. As far as
running back,
behind him,
running
of
back
course.
depth was something that was definitely a thought.
Yep.
Um, y- y- you know, um, Matt Braid is nice. Gary Brightwell is probably, I
Uh,
would say he's a potential roster
Matt,
cut now that you
yeah,
have Eric Gray.
sure. Gary
But
Brightwell is there for special teams. He shouldn't be grabbing the rock for anything else. He's a special teams
yeah,
guy.
yeah. But I mean
Mhm.
that's fine. I think you're developing a little stable of running backs that because again I'm always going to worry about Saquon Barkley getting hurt again.
Sure, sure, sure,
And the best ability is availability, and
sure.
unfortunately whether it's perception or reality, I going to be always looking over my shoulder to say every time he gets hit, get up, Saquon. So,
Yeah, I mean,
um,
I'm gonna take it with the little grain of salt. He did play all season last season. He did get that little shoulder. We did see the little shoulder part. So yeah, it's a very very tough
mhm.
position. And I'm with you. I'm not
Yeah,
breaking
but
bank for him
but to
whatsoever.
answer your original question, though, I think talking about off-season moves. I think the fact that almost every one of these moves that this front office has made is with an eye towards long-term sustainable growth. And I think that, paying Saquon what he wants at his perceived market value may it's kind of like a win now thought
Sure.
more than, where's this team going to be in 3 years? Because I really do not think Saquon Barkley will be on this team in 3 years.
Okay.
I really don't.
So you're the GM. you're sitting down with Saquon, you say, hey, listen, here's my best long-term offer for you. What is that offer?
Very honestly, it's probably lower than you think because again, I don't value wide receivers, running backs, and giving them big contracts
So what
when
is
they're
it?
getting
2
closer to
years,
30.
12 million? What are we talking? Where
I'm
would
think
you at? Six million was what Miles Sanders went for, and I think that was the highest. I think six. Somebody can correct me in the comments. I think 6 million was the highest per year deal, average at least that came out.
I am thinking for me, it would probably be like 2 years, 6 million with incentives, with a
Six
team
million a year, 6 million total.
a year.
Oh well,
Not a
that's
year. No, no, no,
$3
no, no, no. I'm
million
not.
dollars. He'll
I'm
spit
not
on
that
you.
insane. I'm not that insane. No, no, no. A year.
Okay, so
I
so
mean,
yeah, so okay, so 2 years,
listen.
12 million is where you're going.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, that's to me.
that's less than the
That
tag. See, that's where the factor
right.
comes in. That's
But
less.
that's something. But he has not come to that realization yet that the market value of what he wanted. I mean, again, him and his agent screwed up big time by not taking the offer that was
So
presented.
here's the $1 million question: how much is it him? How much is it the agency? Who's really messing up here?
I don't know. I don't know. I am not privy to
I'd
those.
love to know that. I'd love to know how much he's saying yes, no, maybe so, go back, or the agency was making these moves and did it come back. I'd
See,
be very curious.
that's the thing is, and I think athletes get a bad knock with the media and the fans that
Sure.
we don't know. We don't know. Is the agent telling him, "I guarantee you, I can get what you want," and he's like, because some players are not as hands on as other players in
Mhm.
negotiations. They're like,
Sure, I let my agent handle it. They'll come back to me. It's fine. My agent handle
I'm, something. I am empowering you. You're going to make your whatever percentage on you're getting me the best deal you can get me. I don't want to know about it. And some people are, much more hands on. They're telling the agent, this is my limit. This is what I'm taking. So I don't know. I mean, someday it will come out probably what would happen in this for them to reject the offer that the Giants gave them. I mean, I don't think they knew or much people knew that the market would kind of dry up this offseason. I
Nobody saw
think
that coming. Nobody saw that coming.
nobody saw it coming. No, no. So it's just a miscalculation. The question is going to be, is he going to sign? Are they going to come to an agreement before the deadline in July or not?
Okay.
And I think the Giants are.
So Jay's asking, what's worse, watching baseball or Mayhem's internet go down?
I mean, tell you, my internet went down about an hour ago, and it was just like I was texting with you. I'm like, hey man, is your internet down?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah, of course.
I can't get on anything. But now we're fine. But I can guarantee you, if you watch baseball with me, you'd have a good time.
All right, cool. Darren Waller,
Yes, sir.
third round comp pick. What are your thoughts here?
It's a bit of a lottery pick. I mean, if he stays healthy, I think he could be a very valuable asset. Again, this is my personal philosophy, which I said on the show. My number one receiver should be a wide receiver one, not a tight end one, unless you are, a goat tight end. If you're Kyle Pitts at Florida or someone,
Sure.
but Darren Waller is not Kyle Pitts at Florida. I think it solidifies the tight end position. A lot of things they want to do, but I this team still needs to get a wide receiver one. This team has a wide receiver room full of wide receiver twos. We don't have a wide receiver one. And if Waller is healthy, he will probably be our leading receiver, but I don't think he's a guy that is your number one difference maker on offense as a receiving threat. I like the pickup. And again, if he stays healthy, I think he could be a very valuable asset. But again, a little bit of wait and see with him. But
Okay.
I was, I was like, okay, cool. I also am a person who likes tangible assets more than the promise of draft picks. Something like, oh, you gave up a third round pick. It's like, yeah, but I got this guy, and now I'll take the guy, the known commodity, over the idea of drafting someone in the third round.
Okay.
That's always going to be me.
All right. Gun to your head. Have you looked at the schedule for next season?
Yes, I have. That's the most scheduled come out day is one of the biggest days because I do a lot of traveling. I do my weekends.
Oh, nice. There you go. So you're
My
getting
weekends in the
prepped.
fall, I'm in between Gainesville and the Meadowlands and wherever either team is traveling road trip. So that's you know
Sure.
that's a day I am booking flights and hotels and
So you've
analyzing.
perfect. You've seen it. Gun
Yes.
to your head, what's the record looking like next season?
Gun to my head.
Gun to your head. Is it 7? Is it 9? Is it 10? Where are we at?
Gun to my head. 9-8.
That's fair.
I mean,
9
it's
and
a
8 back in the wild card. 9 and 8 back in the
yeah.
wild card, or 9 and 8 missed the playoffs.
Uh,
Or it could go either way.
either way for sure. I still don't think we've closed the gap nearly enough with Philly to compete for the division. That's a tough division, so you're playing, 6 tough. Even Washington is not a walk in the park.
Not after that stupid tie.
Yeah, right. We have a brutal first half of the season. It's not set up with all the away games and the way it's sequenced out. We're gonna have to stay on the West Coast for weeks 2 and 3. That's not easy. Primetime games screw up your normal routine and schedule. I think this team. I think this team will be better than it was last year. The record may not reflect the jump we're going to see from year 1 to year 2 with this
That's a
administration.
common theme I'm hearing, and I
Yeah,
tend to agree. I'm hearing this common theme against, I wouldn't say most analysts per se, but at least within the community, everyone seems to have at least being on the right page, or not the right page, but the same opinion that we can see individual and team progression, but we can see a little backtrack in the record progression.
yeah. I mean, let me ask you a question.
Oh,
Is this a year where okay, so when you start a rebuild, you're not necessarily concerned about the record. You're like,
no. Yeah, of
we
course
got to we got to acquire assets. We have got to,
not.
we got to get draft picks. We have to start
I'm
developing players.
evaluating coaches and players at this point. The record is what
Exactly.
it is.
Now, this is, in my opinion, year 2 of a rebuild. We are progressing faster because we won a lot of games last year. We made the playoffs. We won a playoff game.
Our coaching won us games.
Yeah, exactly. Do you do you look at year 2 and this year as you're not as concerned overall about the record and you want to see the continued growth in this team so we compete next year to have a realistic shot of winning the division and maybe winning the conference and going to the Super Bowl? Or are you kind of like, yeah, I know we're rebuilding, but I'm worrying wins and losses trump everything this year? What's your take on that?
Sure.
I know my opinion.
So I'm not going to say wins and losses trump everything, because if individuals take some leaps and bounds forwards, but injuries, lack of depth, coaching catches up, other people have enough tape now, and those handful of games that broke in your favor now don't break in your favor, and all of a sudden that 9 becomes a 7. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lose my mind. I'll be disappointed that we're not back in the playoffs, but I'm not going to lose my mind, especially if Evan Neal takes that next step, and now Kayvon Thibodeau is finishing. If all these little things are now happening, that next year seems way more exciting, because that's the year where everything needs to now turn. That third
Sure.
year, I'm putting a gun to everyone's head and saying, listen, everyone's now had enough time. This is your third draft class. Everyone's got 2, 3 years. Now, if you don't get to at least this, now we have problems.
We're on the same page.
Yep.
This is going to be one of the biggest internal struggles I'm going to have all year, is that I've had a taste last year, and
After
I'm
such
going
a
to
long
be
time, right? That's the problem. After such a long time.
I'm going to be emotional. I'm going to be thinking with my heart a little bit more about, you know, looking around at the rest of the division, watching other wild card potential teams and seeing what they're doing in the standings, and worrying a little more when I really this year want to see, like, in the little things on the margins, like you said, if Evan Neal takes that step up, which we all think he's going to,
Yes.
all of a sudden this offensive line is a very good offensive line.
Sure.
You know,
Not only
you
that,
know,
if JMS is just good, I don't need a Pro Bowler. If he can just hold the
mhm,
center position, just be good. You're not going to
mhm,
get all pros and Pro Bowlers everywhere. Sometimes it's okay to just be a good piece.
mhm. I mean, we're probably Banks is probably going to struggle this year. He's a rookie, and
It's
cornerbacks
such a hard position, man. It's such a
and
hard position.
cornerbacks take. But here's the thing now: the Giant fans' expectation now is playoffs, and probably a
Course.
lot of them are like, not just playoffs, further than we went last year.
No.
So you have to balance those two in your brain of excited versus expectation, and
But now
that's
you're bringing like reasoning and practicality, and that's not fandom. Those two things are hard to. marry together, man, because we're fans,
Well,
right?
that's
Super Bowl or bust, baby. That's why I got
and
the belt, right?
and that's why we do the Just Giants podcast with Ruff and I. Is
Well, we bring a little bit of reality to it.
we
So,
try to have an approach of keeping things real. Like that's why we do our shows in the season. They come out on Tuesday and not Monday because we want 24 hours just to think about what happened. Not
but
necessarily film study, but more about
letting it
you know
digest, not being emotional, not having a
right.
reaction,
I
thinking
mean
it
that's what
through.
that's what Twitter's for. Twitter's to hear us get pissed off and just shoot off our first thought.
And
We
that's
try to do something.
you're going into my next question, but go on.
Yeah, we try to have like okay, let's keep things in perspective and let's try to keep things realistic. And I think you know, again, like I said before, I think you can be at the same time excited and realistic, and
Sure.
excited and have realistic expectations.
All right. Three more questions, and I'll give you your freedom. Number one,
Yeah.
why the cranky fan? Why are you so cranky?
Well, what happened was, I sit here, I have my lovely wife, she's in the other room right now. If I'm watching a game or something, I would just start screaming at the TV, like, when things happen, when things don't go well, and just
Sure.
she's like, I'm tired of hearing you yell all the time. And then this is around when Twitter first came out around 2009. It's like, I can go on Twitter. I can just say what's annoying me and not be screaming all the time. And one of my buddies was just like, you're like a cranky fan. I'm like, that's a good name for a Twitter account. And that's
There
how
you
it
go.
became.
Shout,
So,
shout out, shout out to all the women in our lives, holding us down, man.
hey, the
Holding us down.
cranky wife is a saint. She's a big 49er fan and a Warrior. She's in the Bay Area. And she's actually a Vegas Golden Knight fan. So this weekend we'll be in Miami for Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So
Oh, look
we
at that. That's
we have
pretty
a cool
awesome.
family. Yeah.
Excellent. I was
But
just
that,
in
that that
I was
is
just,
why
I was just in Vegas for Memorial Day weekend. They took one of the Roman statues and they have a Vegas jersey on them when you walk the
that's
strip. It was
awesome.
hilarious.
I
It
love
was
that.
hilarious.
I love when a city gets into it and you go like all over and you'll see like the statue in front of City Hall and it has like
Sure.
a Patriots jersey on or something and that's
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Two more questions. Number
Sure.
one, social media. What
Mhm.
do you like about the Twitter world in the Giants community?
Two things. One, information. I think there's a lot of very smart people out there either analyzing games as they are happening or after the fact. I feel like I'm a much smarter person, and also that I've gotten to meet a lot of really good, Giant fans and listeners of our podcast and people like you, where I feel like we've developed a nice little community, both online and now that we meet. Chris was saying that one of our tailgate buddies. We have a
Sure.
nice group, that we meet, before every home game. Where I never would have met those people if we weren't on Twitter together and social
Sure.
media and doing these podcasts. Like we have this kind of like unaffiliated little group of podcasts of like these different shows, Talking Giants, Just Giants, your show, all those guys, and
Yeah, absolutely.
we're
And it's
all
fun to
kind of
just converge and come together. It's just a good time to,
yes,
kind of just, again, not to be redundant to what my show is called, but you're just kind of kicking it, right? You're just having a good time having a conversation about it.
yeah.
Um, so
The things I
on the flip side, the dark side of the Twitter social media community, what annoys you or upsets you or bothers you the most about that side of the Giants community,
um,
if
well,
anything?
I wouldn't say the giant community. I would just say social media as a whole. And the fact that everybody is a combination of two things. One, everybody is trying to become a star on social media. So everybody will have exaggerated takes about things that I can't believe they honestly believe. I think they're just trying to get likes and follows and clicks and all of that stuff. Um, I think the discourse goes from 0 to 100 way too fast, and I think it's toxic.
That's
In
the
fact,
that's the Skip Bayless path, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
really what did it for him, to be honest with you. His whole mantra has been, "I'm going to do the most egregious and say the most egregious things."
Well, that's his. He says the most outlandish and the most silly things. I think just to draw attention to
Right.
a point. Now people are like, "What is he going to say next?" But I'm talking about like the discourse getting like, "You're the biggest asshole of all time
Yeah.
because you think that you think You think
That's
going
true.
for it on fourth down, you are the dumbest person ever. And I think it raises the blood pressure of everybody, and I think it puts everybody in a constant state of defense mechanisms and conflict. And
Sure.
I don't think that's healthy. And I've actually really cut back. I was on a work trip for a couple of weeks, and I took Twitter off my phone for a
Nice.
couple of weeks. I knew, like, for 2 weeks, I'm just going to be off, and I haven't put it back on yet, to be very honest. I mean, I'll check once or twice a day to see but honestly, I appreciate, the fans out there, but I'm over the constant making things go from 0 to 60. I don't think it's
Yeah.
healthy for anybody. I don't think it makes fans smarter. I don't think it makes them better fans. I just think it's making to see, how big your PP is, and I don't think that's a good world we want to be in.
Sure. You're now the seventh person I'm interviewing, sans DRC, eighth episode, but seventh person I'm interviewing. Everyone has answered the question the exact same way. It's
Yeah.
that Giants Twitter community gets way too personal, way too quick, and it's just
Well,
unnecessary. And I agree. There's really no need for
well,
the
I think
excess of the
that's
extra.
I think that's everybody. That's not just Giant fan in particular. I think it's easy to have, you know, huge muscles and brass balls when you are on your phone or on your
Yeah, sure.
laptop,
Because if you say
and
it to
you're
my face, that's a whole different
exactly.
world. It's a whole different
I
world.
Yeah, and I think everybody thinks they're the smartest person in the room and the funniest person in the room, and I- it's really something that what the problem is that people then, and I've noticed this in society, is that it bleeds from the social media world into real life. And you see people acting the way they didn't act 15, 20 years ago because they think they're still online. The way they treat people, the way they respond to people, the way they address people. And I definitely think that, for all the good social media does, it brings people together. You meet new people, you get more information, makes the world smaller. I definitely think it's caused a lot of problems socially in this world, how we interact with others. And I think that's a big problem. And
Sure. And Darius says, Giants Twitter can be pretty toxic, so he just follows the right people to avoid those individuals. That's probably the best thing you can do, right? Why want to see information that's just going to either upset you, bother you, or anything of that nature? Just
well, it
keep it
just,
to,
I can see, you can see how, the problem is with like younger people, like, girls are, you know, they're afraid to go on Instagram because they don't get enough likes. They feel like they're not as, important as somebody else, or,
sure, sure,
they bullying and stuff. I just think that it's an instrument for things that we've always had. It makes it so much easier to be a prick. And again, we have the anonymity of being behind a screen name or not being in front of somebody. I think it's bad. And, you know,
sure. You just
something
got
we,
to watch out for a Giants fan for life, 89126754, who has a picture of a question mark. So just watch out for that person. Don't know how real it is.
oh, there's
But
somebody down in the Tampa Bay area who wants to fight me, who's a Rays fan, because I don't toe the party line and I don't say rah rah and kumbaya for every little thing that happens. So they're out there. I mean,
are we supposed to do? Are you supposed to do that for every single thing? Like, I don't think so.
you're
That's not
supposed to
normal.
give
That's not normal
you're
behavior.
supposed you're supposed to give your opinions and
Sure,
be have a civil discourse about it. And if you
sure,
can't handle my opinions, the easiest thing to do is just not follow me. So in
absolutely.
fact, anyone who's out there right now and doesn't like what I say, do not follow me. But if you do, at the Cranky Fan.
There you go. That's a good plug right there. And on that segue, I'm gonna let the crank go. Appreciate you coming on, man. It was a good time just
Hey, it's
honestly just
great.
having a conversation. Definitely gonna do it again. Want to get Grump on, get you guys together. That would be
Oh,
kind of
for
fun
sure. We'll
as
have you on
well.
our show too, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Let me know. I
Our
appreciate everybody in the comments for coming through, man. Just always adding to the conversation. Darius,
yeah,
Jay, Becca, Chris, Giant Singh. My brother was in the house today. Mark, if I forgot you, please forgive me. Io was in the building.
yeah. Really,
Um,
it's great to hear from you guys. And if
shoot,
you
everybody
get
that
a
was.
chance, subscribe to our show. We're Just Giants podcast. We're on YouTube.
Coach
We're
was in
again.
the house too. Coach, don't want to forget about Coach. Coach is another really great
Thanks,
supporter.
Coach.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Crank. It was good to get to again. If you don't know Crank, again, follow him, follow the podcast as well, and then you'll see Grump as well. So make sure you follow
Yeah.
him. Guys have again, they're just good guys to talk to, and that's part of what the community is having good guys to have conversation with.
Hey, all we want to do, and the bottom line is, we're just fans of the Giants. We want the Giants to be We love to win the Super Bowl every year. We just want them to be good and competitive and interesting. And I think that makes us all happier. It makes better conversation. So thankfully they're on the right path, I believe. I don't think this is a one-hit wonder last year. That good times will be coming again. I mean, for all these are old enough to remember, the Super Bowl runs in 2007, 2011, or even the ones in the 90s. It's a lot of fun when your football team is good. So I think we're going to be there, and we'll have some good times.
Absolutely. The world is much better when the Giants are winning. And that's all I took away from that. Well, thank everybody. Have a
Amen.
great night and appreciate you, Crank. And we'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank you so much.